conversation is going round. People talking about the colors come to town. Fresh as a summer breeze, she'll take you by surprise.
Good morning and welcome to another fabulous episode of Fresh Waves here on Whistle FM. Jason Rumball is our technical producer today. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Brent. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. It's a good day, isn't it?
It's a very good day. It's nice and warm out there. And
every time I drive into the station and see your scooter parked outside, I know that it's a good day.
It's a good day for scootering out in town.
Yeah. Well, you don't drive in inclement weather, do you?
No, of course not. No. Not yet. So,
although I do think you need to have a golf umbrella that attaches to the back so you can protect yourself from the sun and the rain.
Of course. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Got to work on that one for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks to Reeser's Market and Bakery for the muffins that they've provided in the studio today. They have a lot of great things, so go on in and check out all their wonderful, wonderful baked goods and produce and... Oh, I can't say enough good things about Reeser. They're at 5758 Main Street. Joining us in the studio today, just because it's fall and just because we can, we have Jennifer Creeggan. Jennifer is a local potter, and I ran into her in Haliburton this summer at the craft show in Haliburton. And of course, coming up soon, we have the Stouffville Studio Tour. And then in November, we have the Beyond Crafts show and sale. I like to say show because even if you're not going to buy anything, it's just a wonderful place to wander about and look at things, which is a show. And then if you like it, you can buy it, which is a sale. So it all works together. Jennifer, good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm great. Thanks.
Welcome to Fresh Waves. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So you're a potter.
Yes.
Not Harry Potter.
No.
A potter who makes pottery.
Yes. Yeah. Potter, ceramic artist. Lots of different names for somebody who does that. But yeah.
Okay. So how did you get involved in this stuff? Was it something like you were in grade 2 and decided plasticine was your thing?
Funny, oddly enough, there was a potter in Barrie called Smiley Pottery, and he was on Highway 11, just outside of Barrie. And when I was in grade 6 or 7, I think, someone in our class, we had like a class trip to the pottery. And it was just such a cool little place. Like he had a century home, and then his studio was in kind of like a little barn board workshop on the side. And I was just fascinated. My mom had a set of his dishes, as did a lot of other moms in Barrie. And it was kind of like that typical like 1970s, like brown, really chunky, really earthy, kind of like good down home, stoneware pottery. And I remember,
know just the ones.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember using it as a kid, and it always left an impression on me. And when we toured this little studio with our class, I was just fascinated and kind of wanted to do something like that ever since. And so that just kind of got me hooked.
And even so, from a young age, you've been doing pottery?
No. So there was a girl in our class who tried to arrange classes, and he, like any busy potter, just didn't have the time. Didn't have the time because, you just get so kind of busy with the schedule of trying to, make enough stuff to kind of keep up with the orders and the shows and everything. So I can totally understand that. But, probably when I was like 13 or 14, I didn't have access to pottery or to clay, but I always made stuff and sold it, which I think is kind of unique. It's weird because when you look back at what you end up doing in life, you can kind of see little snippets of it, I find, starting kind of at a young age. And so, I remember when I was 14, I used to, hand-painted T-shirts were really popular. So I used to paint T-shirts and those little kind of kids sneakers, and my mom's friend put them in her store in Oshawa and sold them. And then I would make earrings and sell them. So I always enjoyed making something to sell, that part of the creative process. And so it just kind of started with there.
That's really neat. So when I was 4 or 5, I made mud pies and tried to sell them to neighbors and things.
Didn't work.
I figured when they dried out, it was kind of like clay.
Yeah.
But nobody bought them. Anyway, I was better off with the lemonade stand.
Yeah, food is always a better seller anyway.
So you don't do just pottery. You have... you're artistic, obviously.
Yeah. And always leaning towards more of the artisan side of things than the artist. Like I consider myself an artisan, and I make the distinction that artisans make things that are, creative and beautiful, but they also have a purpose. Whereas I find like an artist makes something to say something, right? To say a message. Mm-hmm. And I just saw something on Facebook actually last week that kind of explained it pretty well. But where the artisan works with their head and heart. I can't remember what it was, and then the artist actually works with their head and their heart and their something else. Anyway, but it was, I enjoy making functional things. So I'm not really an artist, although some people might want to call themselves artists who, make functional pieces, but I just really enjoy making functional pieces. And it's not like, I do it just to kind of, as my bread and butter. I really enjoy making functional pieces. Like I get a lot of pleasure out of making something that I know someone is going to use, on a day-to-day basis, that they're going to use and like, and because I know how I feel like in the morning when I'm looking in my cupboard, and I have a cupboard of about, 60 different handmade mugs from all different potters. And just kind of like that thought process in the morning of pulling out the mug that I feel like having that day, and different uses for it, or just kind of depending how I feel, if I want like a brightly colored fun one, or if I want something a little more subdued. Yeah. Anyway, so I get a lot of pleasure out of that process.
I like the different mugs because I have 4 kids, and was that my mug? No, don't drink out of my mug. And everybody's got this fight going, and you can't tell whose mug is who when they all match.
Yeah.
I have not got one matching set of mugs in my house, and it works really well. That one's yours.
Yeah.
And plus, people I think have, in so much as when you get up in the morning and you're in a certain mood, you go for a certain set of clothing.
Yeah.
And that's a creative event as well. It's
a creative choice.
Yeah, choice. And I look in my mugs and, okay, so I've got my 2 favorites. But there are mornings where I doff my 2 favorites and choose something different. And I like that. I like the choice. It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. It's fun. I don't know what it is that feeling of using something that somebody else made with their hands. Like it's just a different feel. And then there's a functional choice too. Sometimes if I know I'm in a hurry, I'll pick a mug that has a wide flared top so that my drink cools down quicker. If I know that I have some time, that I'm going in the studio, I'm going to work, I'll pick like a bigger mug that, where the top kind of closes in a little bit more because it keeps my drink hotter longer. So,
a woman after my own heart. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Lots of different reasons.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're going to take our first break. Do stay tuned because we have all kinds of interesting information and fun facts coming your way this morning with Jennifer Creeggan. We're talking about craft and artisans. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and we'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.
Hi folks, Kim Mitchell here. However you choose to get around, your ATV, your snowmobile, your boat, car, if you have a motorcycle, all these things take 100% of your attention and skill to operate safely. Alcohol impairs that, and bad things can happen. So, be smart, okay? You know what I'm going to say next.
This message brought to you from the Safe and Sober Awareness Committee.
Hey everyone, this is Lil J. Join me every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern for The Block Party, a 2-hour journey of the best in the Canadian underground dance music scene, featuring tracks and DJ mixes from Canada's emerging artists, from the disco hits of the 70s to the latest dance floor fillers. No lineups or cover charges. It's your weekly free access to the beats that are packing dance floors in Canada and around the world. The Block Party, Saturday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, right here on 102.9 Whistle FM and online at whistleradio.ca.
We are back on Fresh Waves. We're talking with Jennifer Creeggan, and I'm your host, Bren Masson. If you would like to ask Jennifer any questions this morning, you can get a hold of us on Facebook, and Jay will tell you how.
That's right. You can go to our Facebook page, Fresh Waves on Whistle FM. We're also on Twitter at Freshwaves Radio, and you can call us here at the station 905-640-1027.
Thanks. So if you'd like to get a hold of us, we are live on the air this morning, so you can speak with us. If you are listening to a podcast or listening on Sunday, then no, you can't call in because that would be a repeat. Okay, so we were just talking about choosing a mug that will keep your coffee warm. And there's also all these different preferences. I say quite often, oh, I have a drinking problem. And that is that if I have a nice fat-lipped mug, I spill it all down the front of my shirt time and time again. I like a thinner lip. I actually go to a craft show or whatever, and I'll feel the lip of the cup to make sure it's the one I like. And maybe it's a little OCD, but what the heck, it works for me.
No, you would be surprised how many people do that. And I used to measure, like I do weigh my mugs. They're all about a little over a pound each, so that there is some consistency when I'm making them. But I used to kind of measure exactly like the height and the width and everything. And I found that I kind of like the process more when I made my mugs and people would come in and kind of like pick different ones up. And, you know, some people wanted like a little bit taller and skinnier, and some people wanted a little bit shorter and fatter, and the different feel of the handles and stuff. So I actually purposely try to make each one a little bit different now, but still close enough that you could, you know, buy 6 of them and have a set.
Yeah, so you have a set, but even within the set,
yeah,
it's different. And I like that because I think that's what makes it unique. That's what makes it a handmade piece, is the fact that it's not totally perfect, totally the same. If you want that, just go buy the mass marketed stuff that you see. And, you know, there's so much of that around.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Last year we had one of our guests on the show, and we decided to stop at the Care and Share on our way back. And her father is a potter or lover of pottery and handcrafts. And she was looking for little Christmas boxes to put things in. And lo and behold, she came across a little bowl, and it was darling. And she said, look at this. And I went, what? It's a handmade pottery bowl. Yeah, but it's so-and-so, and it's signed. It's before he got really famous, and it's signed. My dad's going to love this. And it was like $5 or something. Yeah. She was over the moon thrilled to find this treasure. And I think you can only get that from something that's handmade.
Yeah, it's true. Care and Share is, you know, places like that. It's a great place to find, you know, little treasures like that. I had a friend that found a brand new teapot with the tag still in it that I guess maybe somebody got as a gift or something, and they took it to a place like that, and she picked it up, you know, for a song. And, you know, those teapots probably sell for about $250 each. And she was just so thrilled with it. So, yeah, I've heard different stories of people finding unique pottery pieces like that. But
and wonderful treasures. Now, what is the difference with the signature and the stamp?
There isn't really much of a difference. Some people just prefer one or the other. You know, I guess if somebody is kind of in high production, you know, maybe they find it kind of onerous to, you know, sign every single piece. Mm-hmm. So it might be easier to do a stamp. And some potters work with, you know, have apprentices. So, you know, they just can't get to signing all of their pieces. I prefer to work alone, so I don't, you know, produce as much stuff. But yeah, I have no problem signing all my pieces. I can sign pretty fast.
All right, I have to touch upon some practicalities because I actually had a listener who called in earlier and asked, how durable is pottery? Can you put it in the dishwasher? Can you, like, it just seems like she said every time she has a piece of handmade pottery, it lasts less than a year because it'll inevitably get chipped and then it's useless.
Huh. Yeah. It's just like anything else that is breakable in your home. You know, I have a mug that, oh gosh, my husband and I lived in Fort McMurray for 7 years, and I have a mug that I got when I first arrived there in 1993. So how many years is that? A lot. 25. And it's still my favorite mug. So I bought 2 at the time. One broke. I still have that one. Like I have pottery that I've had for 20, almost 30 years. So it's just like any other dish. And I don't know if it's because, you know, it's a unique piece, so people kind of remember it more if it does break. But there's 2 kinds of pottery. One is earthenware, and it's a low fire clay. So a lot of the Mallorca ware that you get from Portugal or Mexico would be considered low fire, and it's still porous. So you shouldn't really,
porous.
Yeah. So you shouldn't really use it in the microwave or the oven or the dishwasher because moisture will get in there and then it can expand and break or crack. Right. So it's not as durable. Most potters in Canada, and myself included, use like high fire clay. So the stuff that we use fires to about, the second firing fires to about over 2200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
It's very durable, but it's like anything else, it's susceptible to thermal shock. So you can't take it out of the fridge and put it into a hot oven. You know, but dishwasher, microwave, it should be fine. Sometimes I find what happens is, you know, maybe it'll get bonked, or maybe somebody else in the family kind of bonked it and didn't say anything, and then they go to put it in, you know, the dishwasher or something, and then it cracks a little bit. But I've had pretty good success with my pieces, unless you really smash it or drop it. You just want to kind of treat it like how you would a glass baking dish or something. Like, you just have to be careful about, like any other baking piece, like with thermal shock. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it should be, you know, and you can ask the potter, but all of the pottery that I do and most of the potters in Canada would be using high fire, stoneware, porcelain clay. So it should be oven, dishwasher, microwave safe.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I still don't put my pottery in the dishwasher. I wash it by hand.
I know. I put everything in the dishwasher unless it's too big, and I've never had anything break in the dishwasher, actually, except my cheap glass IKEA glasses. They seem to break. But I've never had any pottery break in the dishwasher, and I haven't had any pottery break in the oven before. I've certainly kind of like, clumsily, broken a handle off something, or somebody knocks a bowl off of a counter or something like that. So if it falls on the floor, it smashes. But yeah, I've never had anything break in the dishwasher oven. I guess I've been lucky.
I have a mug at the cottage that is just one of my faves, and it's just one of those things. Every time I pick it up, I love it. And this is actually the second generation of it because I take such good care of it. I don't even put it with the other mugs, so no rebel kid can take my mug and mistreat it in some way. So I hide it behind bread and things like that, so only I know where it is and everything. And I had it on the counter one day. It had coffee in it, and one of the kids took a measuring cup down from a shelf above, and they were stacked, and they thought they had a hold of the bottom one, but they actually had a hold of the next one up, so this 4-cup measuring cup landed on my and I had to say to myself, it's just a mug. It's just a mug. It's a $30 mug, but it's just a mug. It's just a mug. It was so sad to see it get broken, and I was lucky because the potter had the same pattern the following year.
That's good.
Because one thing I found is you're hesitant. Do I really like this? I'm going to take it home and try it out. So you try it out, you realize you really like it, you go back the next year, and they've changed their whole pattern, and you can't get that one anymore.
Right.
What?
Yeah, I know. That is kind of heartbreaking. Most potters try to kind of keep their lines for quite a long time. But it's really hard to kind of juggle that, because when you go to a show, you don't want to take, 5 different patterns, because then your display looks like a dog's breakfast, right? And So you have to kind of like, I find I have to kind of keep, with my top sellers, like my top 2 or 3 top sellers, and take those to shows. So sometimes, if I have somebody that that bought something 12 or 14 years ago and they're like, oh, you don't have that anymore. And I'm like, no, I mean, most of the time I'll make something for them if they want it to match. Like I keep the glazes, but usually if a glaze gets kind of retired, it's because it didn't, it was inconsistent firing. So, it wasn't kind of like a good consistent pattern.
Right.
The design wasn't reliable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there's something to be said too for the fact that since it's handmade, it can be unique and they don't all have to match.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I find that I have all different pottery in my house. And I find just even like the fact that it's like handmade and clay, porcelain or stoneware, that, that's kind of the underlying theme. Like I think pottery just kind of goes together, and I actually prefer it when it's not a complete set, that you have a little bit of this and that, but
gives a character. That's for sure. And character's always good.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think character's probably part of the process of having something that's not mass produced.
Yeah. It's personality. You have personality to your pieces. Yeah.
I find in Europe it's very common to have dishes, a complete set. Cup, saucer, if you ever use saucers, side plates, bowls, and plates that are all handmade pottery. I don't know, it's just in my family, but I find that quite a bit in Switzerland and France. It's very common to have those kinds of things. And even if they're chipped, people just use them anyway. Mm-hmm. And I saw my aunt once with a metal nail file filing one of her plates. Said, Tacky Waz, what are you doing? And she showed me how to file down the pottery so that it's a rounded chip instead of sharp edged, and it can be used, and the crack just makes it interesting.
Yeah, it can be used no problem, especially a chip, because it's basically just a little piece out of the clay. A crack is a little bit different. You just want to be a little bit more careful with it because it can end up extending and breaking. But, you can use a Dremel too, because that, if you want to just smooth out some rough edges. But, like it's just kind of like, it's like a nice table with kind of like, homework marks in it or whatever, right? Like it shows kind of the wear of life.
And it's been used and loved, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
All artists want their stuff to be used and loved.
Absolutely.
Even if it is a painting on the wall.
Yeah.
Something that you look at every day and you like it and you enjoy it every day. That's a very special painting, and one that should probably be guarded.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Well, we're going to take our little bottom of the hour break and hear some weather and all that kind of fun stuff. You're listening to Fresh Waves on Whistle FM, and I'm your host, Bren Masson. We'll be back with Jennifer Creeggan right after this.